Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Movie Knights Roundtable. Live, it is me, Dalton Burdett, with the amazing Nicholas Enriquio. Nick, how are you, my friend?
I am doing well. How about you, my friend?
Not too bad, not too bad. We have a very fun show for you guys today. We have tons of movie news stories to talk about, but the main topic at the end will be about the fact that it seems like some major movie studios are trying to kill auteur directors and independent film itself. Very odd things going on. Bit of a tinfoil hat situation, but we love talking about those things. We have fun. That's what we do. That's what we do here. But guys, before we dive into that, I want to give a quick reminder that if you are watching live, please participate by asking questions or comments in the live chat. If I like what you have to say, I'll give you a little highlight like you see right here. And if it's a question, we'll answer it directly on the show. Or if it's just a fun little comment, I'll highlight it as well. We love the community. We love making you guys part of the show. It's what we do. It's what we do. And with that down, we are now going to dive in to our first news story, Nicholas. And that story is about the Narnia reboot, which we've been covering somewhat extensively on the show. You know, Greta Gerwig's Narnia film, mostly talking about how Netflix and theaters, or IMAX particularly, are kind of coming together to actually kind of make a deal to play Narnia in IMAX. Well, that's a great win for movie theaters, but this is a different type of story. It's casting news. We have some casting news for you. It appears that there is a star in final negotiations to play Aslan, that beautiful fucking lion, in Narnia. And that actor is none other than the GOAT herself, Meryl Streep. She is in final negotiations, according to Deadline, to take the role of Aslan in the Greta Gerwig Narnia film. Not an offer stage just yet. I said final negotiations. That was a lie. It was previously played by Liam Neeson in the original film, and Nexus Point News was actually the first to report it. They had the exclusive on that, with Streep in talks, and reported the film will also adapt the sixth novel in the Narnia series, The Magician's Nephew, which chronologically takes place first in the series, hence why they're telling the story in that way. So, a couple of things about this. One, I know there are going to be some fucking nerds who are upset for some reason, but I gotta tell you, I think this is awesome news. I think adding Meryl Streep to anything may be controversial. A good move. Good move to add Meryl Streep to things. And, it shows that there is kind of this particular vision for the Aslan character. They're being very direct with how they're doing this. And I don't know about you, but if I need to feel inspired or preached to, I'll listen to Meryl Streep. I'll take that shit. Listen all day long. I want to get your thoughts on this. How tied are you to like the original Narnia films, and do you think having Meryl Streep play this role is a good idea?
I think having Meryl Streep play any role is a great idea, quite
Facts.
frankly. I watched the original Narnia films. I enjoyed them, but I wouldn't say there's something I'm necessarily nostalgic for. I did enjoy it, so actively I am, interested to see Greta Gerwig's take on it, especially because, I think I'm more interested in Greta Gerwig's involvement in the project more so than the concept of the reboot happening, you know?
Yeah, that's fair.
But I think, Liam Neeson, such a powerful voice. It's one of those things where I feel like, how do you recapture that? And I think the answer is to go in a different direction, which I think Meryl Streep is a fantastic choice for that. Obviously it's a multi-picture deal, and so I could see Meryl Streep, liking that it's really just a voiceover. She just sits to go into the recording studio, say her lines, get her check, and get out. But I was actually more shocked if they're going this direction that she didn't first, or maybe she did. There's no news regarding it. Go to Helen Mirren first, who did the narration for Barbie. If
Mm.
you're sort of going with that more feminine voice.
Yeah, no, listen, that's fair. I like what you brought up about how it being easier for Meryl Streep just to come in and do a voice role. However, I would love behind the scenes videos of her in like a mocap suit pretending to be a lion. For some reason, that just makes
Like
me
the ones
laugh.
of Benedict Cumberbatch doing
Smaug, yes,
Smaug. Um,
yes.
did you read through the article though? Because there's something more interesting as well that I thought was I don't think had been reported before.
Please give it to us.
Okay, so it's going to adapt the Magician's Nephew, which chronologically takes place first in the series.
Hmm.
It tells the origins of Narnia and is centered on Diggory Kirk and Polly Plummer, who discovered the magical world through Diggory's uncle's magic. The site reports that Aslan will be female. as we had talked about on the show and has been previously reported, Charlie XCX is in talks for the role of the White Witch.
Yes.
But Daniel Craig is also being courted for the project, and they're trying to get him to be Diggory's uncle there. So, a pretty prominent figure in the story. And that was just a weird, like, one sentence thing. Meanwhile, everyone's been running with Charlie XCX, which makes me believe, and especially with Meryl Streep, that this is probably a lot more maybe solidified deals.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that is just we need to cast the uncle. Would Craig be interested in this? It might be at that stage.
But he turned down Sergeant Rock, so he's open.
No, exactly. So, but I thought it was weird that wasn't necessarily more of a headline, because it seems like it's sort of at the same stage with Meryl Streep, where it's just ideas being floated.
I wonder if it's a trying to make it happen journalism, where like maybe if someone at Netflix or in Gerwig's camp kind of tipped off either Nexus Point News or Deadline, they were like, "Hey, mention Craig. We're trying to get him."
Well, here's the thing too that's more interesting about the Daniel Craig of it all, which would almost make me sort of lean against it, is he really does not like Netflix, specifically with what they're doing with the Knives Out series.
Yeah.
So would that make him more hesitant to take the role, even though it has the guaranteed theatrical release for the first one? But Netflix may be one to pull trigger if the box office return isn't what they want it to be. Slash a budget and drop it straight on the platform.
Maybe.
I could see Craig maybe not wanting to get back into that realm.
Or maybe Craig uses it as negotiation to get the same deal for Knives Out 3.
Maybe. That could also be. Would an actor is he a producer at all on those Knives Out movies? Like, executive?
If he is, it's by name. I don't necessarily think he has the power to do so, but it depends on how big the role is in that movie and how important Daniel Craig is in the role. If
something like that would be like, oh, we want you to do this, and would he have the leverage to say, okay, go talk to Rian Johnson about the next Knives Out?
Having the leverage is not necessarily what's important. I think what's important is that he's like, hey, I can publicly leak through one of the trades, or just through, some blogger, because there's so many smaller sites like Nexus Point News, like World of Real, things like that. It's like, people are going to find out that you're not going to give Rian Johnson that deal, and I'm going to say it. What do you want to do? So does he have the power to do it? Not really, but that doesn't mean he can't try and it won't work. So, or hey, it could even be a thing of him talking to Greta Gerwig, because I think Greta Gerwig has more power than he does over helping out another filmmaker friend or doing whatever. But at the same time, it's a cutthroat business, and you got to look out for yourself. So, Greta needs to get her deal first, which she got. Now it opens it up a little bit, but, it's tough. It's tough out there. It really is.
No, it is. It is. But I mean, I think overall, I am interested. I think the uncle character doesn't seem to be, he's the one who owns the wardrobe. I don't think it's probably a book ending more than anything else. So I'm sure they would love a big name attached for that small role. But I think your main casting here is definitely going to be Aslan, which I think is interesting. I like that they're going back from the sixth book, which takes place first. I like that with this series, we're going to actually start from the beginning instead of getting the movies, and then it's like, and here's the prequel of how it all came to be. It's like starting Hunger Games with
Songbirds and Snakes.
I wonder if that would be, I don't know. That seems interesting to me. I like that idea more so than watch how it all happened.
Yeah.
Why is the Wicked Witch bad? Let's find out.
I mean, it's certainly a good way to kind of reboot and get a fresh start in the franchise, for sure. But guys, what do you think about Meryl Streep joining the Narnia reboot and possibly Daniel Craig as well? Let us know in the comments as we move on to our next story. And this next story just came out like at almost midnight Eastern time last night. It was like 11:45 or so. I immediately texted Nick and said, put this on the show. We are putting this on the show. Guys, let's talk about Roadhouse. I have an interesting relationship with that, I guess you can call it franchise now. The original film, the one with Patrick Swayze, is where my parents got the name Dalton from and named me. So clearly, I have an interesting relationship with that movie. That lovely, dumb, fun, brilliant movie. Love it. The remake with Doug Liman and Jake Gyllenhaal seemed like it was a movie that was made for me. It's Doug Liman, who I love. It's Jake Gyllenhaal, who I love. It's Amazon, who exists. And basically, they, the drama of it all, of them not putting it in theaters, and then Doug Liman being like, you said you put it in theaters, you motherfuckers, and then Amazon being like, you fucking said you take the deal, what the fuck is wrong with you? Blah, blah, blah. The drama was more fun than the movie. The movie, it had its moments, but it wasn't very good. Conor McGregor was on a whole other planet. That's a whole other thing. But it did very well for Amazon, and they are now officially making a sequel. And guys, you might see from this little thing I'm about to cut to here, it's a little bit cut off, but that's okay. It says Aladdin director set for the Roadhouse sequel. And you may be thinking, wait a minute, the Aladdin director, the live-action Aladdin, wasn't that directed by Guy Ritchie? Fuck yeah, it was. Guy Ritchie's might direct Roadhouse too. Just when I thought I was out, they fucking pull me back in. I want to watch a Guy Ritchie Roadhouse movie so fucking badly. I'm in. They have me. Anyway.
I was trying very quickly before you got to the build-up of revealing it, just going Ron Clements and John Musker, who are the animated directors.
It's genius.
But my IMDb did not go quick enough.
Listen, it would have been a good bit. But here's what I want to point out. I love this little note that you have here that Ritchie has directed 5 films in the last 4 years with 3 new ones set for this year. My man is working. He's working, baby.
It's so funny to me because Guy Ritchie reminds me very much of Steven Soderbergh, where they just crank them out, but they never give Soderbergh a budget. And Guy Ritchie made like one of the biggest flops ever. And then Aladdin made $1 billion, and now it's like, all right, give him whatever he wants.
Got him. And
The
listen,
man has one of the highest grossing movies of all time, and also the biggest flop. That is impressive.
And listen, he's been able, like, the films that he's directed in the past couple of years, like, are they the most amazing films ever? No, but they're still pretty fucking good. I loved Operation Fortune. I really loved The Covenant. What else did he come out with?
I didn't get a chance to see The Covenant there.
I liked it. I liked it quite a bit.
That was with Gyllenhaal.
It was.
Well, you have Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, which I
also loved. Oh, Wrath of Man. How can we forget Wrath of Man?
Wrath of Man was great.
Good shit.
Was he? Oh wait, hold on. He didn't. But did he direct Wrath of Man?
I thought he did.
I thought he just wrote it. Nope, he did direct it. I just looked it up.
Yeah.
Live fact checking. And he's got a show as well that's premiering right now called Mobland, and they just did the Gentleman TV show.
Yeah.
So I mean, the man works, and I would say his resume as of late has been pretty positive.
No, honestly, and specifically him to Roadhouse. Let's kind of dive back into that. Solid fucking choice. I mean, match made in heaven for the type of vibe that this movie and this franchise kind of gives for his sensibilities. You could, I get like Sherlock Holmes vibes in terms of the action and how it's shot, not necessarily the character, but I could definitely see this being a match made in heaven of, these two are perfect for each other. That's how I feel personally about it. How do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I think, so my relationship with Roadhouse is that I've seen the Jake Gyllenhaal one and not the original.
Oh my God.
But you know what? And I'll tell you what, I enjoyed the Jake Gyllenhaal one. I don't know if I didn't have that chip on my shoulder going in, which it seemed like a lot of people had. I thought it was quippy. I thought the third, it scales up way, way, way too big. Much larger than it should have, but I liked the character that Jake Gyllenhaal played. I liked the quippiness of everything. I liked just sort of that dynamic. And I would say that is sort of also Guy Ritchie's bread and butter.
Mm-hmm.
So I think having that paired with his action, I think it's going to be great. And I thought Doug Liman did a wonderful job with the action scenes for the most part. I enjoyed the visual style on it, but I think it is something that's going to be visually and tonally a lot different, and personally to me, I think for the better.
No, listen, I agree. And Nick, in an aid, in a plea to get you to watch the original movie, there's one very important thing I need you to know. At one point, Patrick Swayze is fighting not the main villain, but the main henchman. It's a big fight that's built up to throughout the movie. And at some point in the fight, the henchman starts winning. He starts beating Patrick Swayze's ass. And you know how there's beats in the 80s action where like they fight, then there's dialogue, then they fight?
Yeah.
In one of those beats, he simply grabs Patrick Swayze by the back of the hair, looks at him, and says, "I used to fuck guys like you in prison," and then keeps fighting him. This is the type of movie we're dealing with. You have to watch this masterpiece, please. Please watch this movie. I'm begging you, please.
You know, it is some one incredible. What a line. Like is that a tough guy line? Is that I don't know what to make of that.
It's beautiful.
It's certainly not dated well.
It's art. That's what it is.
But the other thing that I think is worth noting, right? Guy Ritchie is quite the streamer go-to. You know, the Covenant
as of late.
The Covenant was an Amazon release.
They did that theatrically though.
Oh, did they? I thought it was just full Amazon.
I saw it in a theater, and it was not press.
Well.
I bought my ticket.
Well, how about that? Well, good for Amazon for the theatrical vibe of it.
Back when they
didn't
were
do
cool.
it for Roadhouse.
No.
That'd be shitty. I hope that Roadhouse 2 gets theatrical.
Oh my god, guys! If Roadhouse 2 gets
just
theatrical,
the letter Doug Liman would write. But
be
they had
so
the
funny.
Gentleman series on Netflix. Mobland, I think, is Paramount. I want to say.
I think so. Yeah.
And then now you have this, which is going to be Amazon. They just released the trailer for
Fountain of Youth for
which
Apple.
is Apple. So I mean, he's like, "Give it to me. If you're going to give me a budget, let me go."
And
I liked the Fountain of Youth trailer. I saw a lot of discourse online. I vibed with it hard.
I liked it. I liked it a lot. And I honestly think that the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, I'm pretty sure, was Amazon in other countries, and it was theatrical here. So that relationship has been set for a while. But, yeah, no, listen. I think it's a good match, Guy Ritchie and Roadhouse. I'm going to watch it. But, guys, what do you think? Do you think Guy Ritchie and Roadhouse are a good match? Do you think this is a good idea for the director of that film? Let us know in the comments as we move on to our next story. And this next one, this is something funny. It's a bit of a follow-up report on something we'd previously reported on a different episode. And that is that Mike DeLuca and Pamela Abdy of Warner Brothers might be losing their jobs. And it's something that kind of shocked a lot of people because they were known for having good relationships, but they're kind of using them as scapegoats for the failures of like Joker 2 and Mickey 17, for example. They're kind of pointing to them and saying like, this was your fault. And rumors started going around that maybe even Peter Safran could replace them, and that's what we had talked about on the show. But then Warner Brothers put out a press release or kind of a statement to the trades saying there's no truth to those reports. There's no truth to those reports at all. Don't even worry about it. Well, fun stuff going on over at the WB, hence the water tower. As it is now being reported in the trades, specifically Hollywood Reporter, that David Zaslav is meeting with candidates to replace Mike DeLuca and Pamela Abdy just in case. This is crazy shit. Yeah. And again, you pointed out in your bullet point, it's coming off reports that he was doing not doing exactly that. And, as a result, of course, several, box office films, which we just talked about. The article itself is very fascinating. I highly encourage everyone to read it. It goes into this kind of whack just mindset that David Zaslav is in. And this is like this is such like an asshole thing to do. Like, if you're clocked in at work, and then you go on a website and find out on this website that your boss is meeting with people to replace you just in case, what are you going to do? You're going to be like, bro, what the fuck?
Yeah.
That's so fucked up. If I were Mike DeLuca and Pamela Abdy, I would just start looking for new jobs. Just even if you don't get fired, just get out of there. Like, clearly that situation has become toxic and you got to leave. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that every decision they made was smart or the correct decision, but they've always been filmmaker friendly, and that's worked out great for them. They're being pinned on the loss for Joker 2 a lot, but I'm pretty sure they were also there when Joker 1 came out, one of the biggest successes in the history of that studio. Barbie, they were there for Barbie, the highest money-making movie in Warner Brothers history. Like, don't sit here and tell me that everything they've done is bad either. It's just such an odd scapegoat to have personally. So I want to cut to you on this. What are your thoughts on Zaslav just fucking out there looking for replacements, quote, just in case? And how would you feel if you were DeLuca and Abdy?
I mean, it doesn't speak to confidence, and I think it's one of those things which we've talked about a lot, which is Warner Brothers is very reactive.
Hmm.
They take public opinion, they take box office numbers very, very seriously. But the thing being is we really haven't necessarily seen a lot of Abdi and DeLuca's work. They've been producers for years on a bunch of stuff, right? But they took over the heads as the heads of studio in June, I think, of 2022, right?
Okay, so they weren't part of Joker 1. That was my bad.
No, but well, they may have been producers on it, but they were not the
Hmm.
studio heads yet, right? So Joker, Folie à Deux, and Mickey 17, a lot of those deals were in place before they took the reins,
Hmm.
according to the article, right? So when you look at it, Minecraft is considered their first true like start to finish green light, which is then going to be followed up now critically, however you want to think about Minecraft movie, it's going to make a bunch of fucking money.
So much money.
So, which is what Zaslav probably cares about is that bottom line, right? And then that's immediately going to be followed by Sinners, which is Ryan
Mm.
Coogler's movie, which is also probably going to make, well, not probably Minecraft money, a good amount of money. And it does have that deal, right, with the IP rights going back to him after a few years.
And
You know, and
especially with the budget of that film, it didn't cost Minecraft money to make that film.
exactly. And then also they're coming off of Alto Knights, which Zaslav greenlit, even though everyone told him no.
Hmm.
So, when you look at it, really, they're reacting before they've really been given a chance, to be these studio heads. I think that this is something that you need to see how like Minecraft and Sinners play out, and then going into next year, maybe let them, this to me feels like end of 2026 decisions that need to be made to
Mm.
really see what their actual in the flow. This is what they're green lighting. This is what they're actively producing. These are new IPs and new things that they are bringing. I think that's important.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it right on the head. Exactly. I literally have nothing to add or contribute because you said it so perfectly. Like seriously, that was great, guys. Want some good advice? Listen to Nick Iricchio. He says a lot of interesting and good shit.
Oh! And they have Alejandra in Iritu's movie with
Yep.
Tom Cruise and John Goodman.
Yep.
If Mission Impossible makes money, I mean Tom Cruise is going to get people's seats, So to me, looking at it, they have probably three really solid box office returns coming their way with their next three releases.
And with the Inuyasha film, they could be responsible for greenlighting the movie that gets Tom Cruise's first Oscar.
I think there's a lot. Again, like I said, I think these talks need to be give them a year or two to see what actually happens here.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. I agree. But guys, what do you think about this? What are your thoughts on Zaslav kind of openly meeting with new candidates, even though he said he wasn't going to be firing them? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below as we move on to our next story. And for these next couple stories, we got some trailers to talk about. We're not going to be fucking reacting to them because that copyright shit is no joke when it comes to live streams.
Demonetized.
Easily. Thank God we don't have that many viewers. We would have lost some money. But with that, we had some trailers come out over the past couple days, particularly because of CinemaCon. And the first one we're going to talk about is The Naked Gun. Guys, this trailer, it's about a minute long. It's so goddamn good. I love this trailer. Obviously it's what seems to be a sequel to the original franchise. I was under the impression the whole time that it was a remake. And, some extra thoughts for you here. It's directed by Akiva Schaffer of The Lonely Island, pop star Chip and Dale. And it stars Liam Neeson, Paul Walter Hauser, Pamela Anderson, and Kevin Durand. And he's playing the son of the original star. Like we mentioned, it is actually like a sequel, which I was very surprised to see. The joke at the end of the trailer, when all the characters are like sobbing about their dead relatives from the previous franchise, and you just see the picture of OJ, and then the actor just look at the camera and shake his head, I laughed so fucking hard. For those of you that don't know, OJ Simpson was like a big character in the original Naked Gun. And they addressed it in the best way. Like there was no better way to do that. I thought that was excellent. Nick, what were your thoughts on this trailer?
I was someone. I've always liked Akiva Schaffer. I really
Mhm.
love Popstar. I think it's hysterical. I've seen the Naked Gun movies sporadically. I there's countless of them, so I'm not really sure which ones specifically I've seen. But Leslie Nielsen, I mean, is literally just one of the most gifted comedians from a physical comedy standpoint, from a dry humor standpoint. What they were able to do, like Airplane, I think is just absolutely right. He's an Airplane.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
And that's a
that
certified classic.
fantastic. So I think that having Liam Neeson play the role, someone who's really not necessarily, while he's done comedy in the past, you don't necessarily associate him with comedy. I think it's such a fun decision because I think it's innately funny watching Liam Neeson do all this goofy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what was key to setting up this trailer, right, is you see this little girl who's very clearly a little girl walking in, and then they release a mask that it was Liam Neeson the whole time, which is just all impossible, which I think is what makes Naked Gun great, is just the absurd ridiculousness of it. I also think it's really funny that I think that I saw it in one of the Naked Gun movies. Jimmy is a character. He's 13 in 1988, which would make him 50, as he's being played by 72-year-old Liam Neeson, who looks 72.
Yep. And
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I'm just glad that Liam Neeson has a comedic starring vehicle in a lead starring role, because he's always been a fucking brilliantly a brilliant comedic actor. Where you see him in Ted 2 or that one show with Ricky Gervais, like. He is amazing comedically.
And A Million Ways to Die in the West.
Yeah, oh my God, I forgot about that. Yes.
So he just likes Seth MacFarlane. Because Seth MacFarlane's an executive producer on this.
Mm-hmm. But he's so gifted and talented when it comes to comedy. So seeing him star in a lead, how when he was in his 50s, he became an action star. I hope in this last leg of his career, he's just in a ton of fucking comedies. I would love that. I would love if that happened.
I mean, if this one is successful, I could see them just cranking him out.
Oh, 100%.
But I mean, it was just, and Pamela Anderson. I mean, it's got a great cat. Pamela Anderson, Paul Walter Hauser, Kevin Durand. I mean, so many people came on board with this, and I hope that, I think Akiva is a great comedy director. So I'm excited to see the full absurdism of it.
Oh, me too. Me too. But guys, what did you think of the trailer for The Naked Gun? Please let us know in your thoughts and comments down below as we move on to the next trailer we're going to talk about. Guys, we got to fucking talk about Megan 2.0. Guys, this trailer is fucking insane. Nick was talking to me about it, and he said, hey, have you seen the trailer for Megan 2? And I said, no. And he said, dude, you need to stop what you're doing and watch it right now. And guys, first, some things to point out. The original director, Gerald Johnstone, is back, and it stars Jermaine Clement, Allison Williams, Ivana Sakno, which I believe is from Ahsoka, and
yes.
Violet McGraw, Amy Donald. It's set 2 years after the original. Guys, they're fucking doing Terminator 2. And I can't wait. Dude, as soon as I saw what was happening, they're leaning into the absurdity. They're leaning into the comedy. Seeing Megan fly with a fucking, squirrel suit into, an action sequence. Are you fucking serious?
So for those that have not watched it.
Yes, please give some context.
We highly recommend that you do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's essentially a new robot made with Megan's original code, who basically wants to wipe out anyone that made her code in existence. And they've trapped Megan in what is a little adorable, Alexa type robot thing. Everything's rounded and cutesy. And her still concern is just to protect the girl.
Mm-hmm.
And so they find out, and then someone comes, is they're coming after you and your daughter. And Megan's just get me out of this. I'll go fuck that bitch up. And you're like, you know what? Yeah, go for it. And they give her an upgraded suit. She's taller now. And this whole movie is just her tracking down this robot and trying to fight her. You know how they put text in between scenes and trailers?
Yes,
it literally just says it's this bitch versus that bitch.
Yes.
And it's all set to Oops, I Did It Again by Britney Spears.
Took the words right out of my mouth, yes. And it's also so... Again, I'm so glad they're leaning into the absurdity of it, because the best parts of Megan were the absurd parts. The dance sequence when she fucking sings Titanium, I think that's the best part of the movie. But it also struggled a little bit with identity in that it didn't really know when to go absurd. It didn't know when it should be horror. This looks like it knows exactly what it is. And I can't wait for that, because I believe did the writer from Malignant come back?
I believe so. Akila Cooper.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
which amazing. And here's my question. Because originally they shot Megan to be R-rated and they made it PG-13, then just released the unrated cut later. Do you think they go for the R in this film? Or are they going to do a PG-13 and maybe an unrated director's cut later again?
I could see that. For me, I don't necessarily think I needed it to be R-rated, the original, but having then watched it, I think with the identity issues that you're talking about, I think it could have benefited from leaning more into that R rating with the kills being more graphic and everything. But quite frankly, if you're going to give me the robots fighting constantly, I don't think I need all the blood and gore, especially because they're like made apart, So I think them leaning more into the absurdism and ridiculousness of it, I could see it going more PG-13. Versus, I really think that first one, while I didn't hate it, I didn't love it. I think I probably would like the unrated version a lot more just for that aspect of it.
Right, just that extra kick.
I mean, yeah, the first one made, I think it looks like 185 million, 15.1 times its budget, made for 12 million. So I think this one definitely has a higher budget, and I think that it will definitely get that return, if not more so.
Oh, 100%. Especially if they do keep it PG-13, I do understand it does leave more opportunity for box office. But I like what you said in that it's robot versus robot, so that need for absurd gore isn't there. Whereas the first movie, if it's more of just like a robot versus man, like it's more available.
Yeah, like I can't picture as a Malignant stan here who's sad that we're not getting a Malignant 2.
Don't say that. Don't put that in the universe.
But that one I can't see PG-13.
100%.
That one needed to be R, which is maybe why there's that hesitancy to actually do that. And also, I would want Akilah Cooper to write it as well. But get your bag making the Megan movies. That's fine by me. I hope that Malignant is like secretly like is really her passion project, and she's just like waiting. Like if I do 3 Megan movies, they'll let me bring Gabriel in for the 4th.
Oh my God!
But no, but I think right if you look at horror movies, I think that some of the best ones are when they lean into what they are. Right, just look at the progression of Evil Dead versus Evil Dead 2, and then Evil Dead 3 is just a cult class. It's timeless, which I could see maybe if this movie does well being one of those, right? Where it's just like it's just this weird blip where horror became comedy and it all just blended well.
Like I agree with everything you're saying. It's one of those things where this could improve with each film if they do it right. And I'm down. Like I'm more excited for Megan 2 than I ever was for Megan. And I'm like you. I didn't love Megan, but I also didn't hate it. I'm genuinely excited about Megan 2. Like,
no, I'm definitely very hesitant about a sequel. Just my interest in it. Obviously, I'll go see it and everything like that. But this really rallied me and brought me back into it.
100%.
Which now I could see. This is an instant. This is very much our shit. This absurd robot, like just everything about it. Versus I could see that maybe deterring a lot of people from it. But I'll tell you what, it's very much my shit. So I am fully on board.
Oh, I'm with you. The only thing that makes me sad is I think Gabriel's WB and this is Universal, so I don't know if that will ever happen. But I would love it to. Is Megan Universal? Fact check me.
I can look that up. Yes, because she was at Horror Nights, wasn't she?
I'm pretty sure she was. Because isn't it Blumhouse?
Distributor. I don't know how to look this up. The numbers have it?
If you go to their Wikipedia, it should have it. This is the benefits of doing live. We get to chat through our fact checking. It's super fun.
Distributed by Universal Pictures, Blumhouse Productions, and Atomic Monster.
Boom. There you go. But we have some rights transferring to get that crossover, but we'll get it. You just wait. But guys, what do you think about the Megan 2.0 trailer? Let us know in the comments as we move on to the next trailer we're going to talk about, which does tie into the final story of Studios versus Indies. But this next trailer, this is one where literally I watched it, Nick, and I thought to myself, the king is fucking back. The king is back. One battle after another. And look, Leo's great, but that's not the king I'm referring to. I'm referring, of course, to the amazing Paul Thomas Anderson. He's one of the best filmmakers ever. He's going to be making this film. It comes out in September, right as award season is kicking off. It stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Tiana Taylor, Benicio del Toro, Sean Penn, and Regina Hall. This movie looks bonkers. It looks crazy. It looks insane. I can't wait for this movie. All you had to tell me was that PTA is making it and I'm there. But the thing on the trailer that sold me, and I like the whole trailer, I want that to be very clear, but the final scene of Leonardo DiCaprio and Benicio del Toro, where he's asking advice from what is seemingly his like Kung Fu or MMA sensei, and he just bows and says, courage. And Leonardo DiCaprio's like, courage. Yeah. Thank you, Sensei. Sensei, thank you. And he walks away and then just turns around and goes, Viva la Revolution! And then Benicio just like thumbs up and hides. I'm like, this is the vibe. This is the movie I want. I cannot wait. Cannot wait for this crazy, crazy ass movie. PTA's cooking something. And of course, we're all wondering if it could lead him to his first Academy Award, because to my knowledge, he has never won. Nicholas, what were your thoughts on this trailer?
One, so for those that maybe aren't familiar with it, obviously it's a new PTA movie starring DiCaprio, Benicio del Toro, Sean Penn, and according to the IMDb, the plot is when their evil enemy resurfaces after 16 years, a group of ex-revolutionaries reunites to rescue one of their own's daughter. So it's just ridiculous. And I loved every second of it. It's a crime, drama, thriller, dark comedy, which I really like when PTA dips into comedy. I think he's very gifted, as he should be, being married to one of the funniest women on the planet, Maya Rudolph.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not a big DiCaprio guy, but I do like when he leads into the ridiculous characters like this. So I was a big fan of watching this trailer. It's why I liked Rick Dalton so much. From Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think that's probably my favorite DiCaprio performance. It was fun. It was silly. It was weird. It really didn't tell you a lot of what was going on, but it gave you enough to be interested. I think the selling point is really just, hey, come watch the new Leonardo DiCaprio movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the cinephiles, it's, hey, come watch the new Paul Thomas Anderson movie.
Yeah.
So, I'm there. I thought it was interesting. I'm curious to see like a full trailer, the story trailer and everything like that, and what impresses me is this looks like it has a big ass budget, which, I don't think Licorice Pizza performed too well at the box office, but that doesn't deter. PTA wants to make a movie, let PTA make a movie. So I'm on board. It also has a runtime list of 2 hours and 50 minutes, which is crazy, but
yeah,
that seems also accurate.
Yeah, but we'll also see if that's the final runtime before the film hits theaters. We got a lot of time until then. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, look, I love the trailer. I love Paul Thomas Anderson. I hope that Bradley Cooper just shows up in an unhinged cameo like he did in Licorice Pizza.
The fact that when we were watching, also real quick, one last thing about One Battle After Another, it is being listed as a satirical comedy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is interesting. And Joaquin Phoenix was allegedly attached at one point.
Yeah, he probably dropped out 2 weeks before.
Probably. They had to really pivot there real fast. And then what were you asking before? I apologize.
I was just saying Bradley Cooper's cameo in Licorice Pizza.
When we watched when I watched Licorice Pizza, and I was like, Bradley Cooper was great in it. And you go, hey, do you know the story? A piece of paper just flew off my desk.
Ghosts.
I'm about to be insidious. Perhaps conjured. When I text you, I was like, oh, he was great in it. And you go, hey, he's playing the producer that wanted Nick Cage Superman to fight a spider.
Yep.
And I was like, yeah, everything about that makes sense to me. That tracks.
Yep, 100%. 100%.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, just speaking to Paul Thomas Anderson and like how his range as a filmmaker, like this is the guy who can make both Boogie Nights and There Will Be Blood. Like the level of his capability is just so out there. And the fact that he's given one of my favorite quotes of all time, Nicholas, and it was in 2021 at the end of the year. They were asking, big filmmakers who had films coming out or just like, prestige filmmakers, like what their favorite movies of the year was. And this is a direct quote. I'm quoting Paul Thomas Anderson here. When asked, what were films that stood out to you this year? His exact quote, I liked Venom 2. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
He's also the one that they asked, like, what would you show people in like a college course, and he was like Ted.
Yeah.
And I mean, what else was he's like? Yeah, we're watching all the Marvel movies, right? It's COVID. I liked
Yeah.
Venom.
Yeah.
He had another one. Oh, his whole story about leaving film school.
I was just about to do that. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
It's so good. I'll do it briefly. Essentially, he had left film school and he tells the story in like a famous interview he did, because he was in a screenwriting class, and while he was in the class, the professor said, if you're here to make the next Terminator 2, just, don't even come here, get up and leave, because that's not what we're here to do. So I packed up my shit and left, because I thought, well, Terminator 2 is a fucking awesome movie, so I don't want to be here. It was such a good quote.
Just to fact check you before, he has been nominated for 11 Academy Awards.
Mm-hmm.
He has won 0.
Yes.
Which I will then use to pivot into my question of, what is your favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movie?
Fuck, dude. I haven't seen all of them, to admit, but of the ones I've seen, and I reserve the right to change my answer. I always reserve the right to change my answer, internet. I gotta go with There Will Be Blood.
Mm-hmm.
It has arguably the greatest acting performance of all time in it, followed up by one of the best supporting acting performances of all time by Paul Dano. And like the last 30 minutes of that movie are like legendary. And just the fact that there was a year at the Oscars where it was There Will Be Blood versus No Country for Old Men, like what a time to be alive. Like what a time.
Now we have Wicked versus Emilia Perez.
Correct. But yeah, he's never made a bad film, but I love There Will Be Blood.
I've only seen 3. I've seen There Will Be Blood, I've seen Licorice Pizza, and I've seen Punch Drunk Love. I will also second There Will Be Blood, but I do love a serious Adam Sandler performance.
Mm-hmm.
And while I think that there were the talks of Adam Sandler being nominated for Uncut Gems, to me, I think that Punch Drunk Love is his best acting performance.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that he does a great job with it, and I think that if there's anyone that'll get Daniel Day-Lewis out of retirement one last time, I feel like it will be PTA, just given their working relationship. Funny story about There Will Be Blood is I had never seen it until I had. No, but part of the reason, one, it's long. I know it's the one of the biggest seminal pieces of film history as a film lover and everything. It was just something I never got around to, and when this is where I get really like, oh wow, he is a nerd. For those that don't know and haven't watched the show, Riddler is my favorite Batman comic character, if not my favorite comic book character.
I remember this conversation. I remember this.
And I was very on board with. I really had always in my mind fan casted like a David Tennant, a Glenn Howerton, or someone as the Riddler. And then this news came out that Paul Dano was going to be the Riddler, and I was like, "Who the fuck is Paul Dano? Look at this weird little guy. I don't want him to be the Riddler. What are we doing?" Obviously, they have a very different vision for Riddler in that movie, and Dalton was like, "Just go watch There Will Be Blood. Go watch There Will Be Blood." And I watched There Will Be Blood, and I came out of my room, and I was like, "God damn it, that's good." And then you just find. But then you see Paul Dano, and he's just a weird little dude, and I love it. He's so nice, very soft spoken. He had a great cameo in the first episode of The Studio, which I thought was really fun.
By the way, I'm caught up
now. I have every episode of sorry, not every episode. Geez, every issue of his Riddler Year One that he wrote as part of his character.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very happy as a comic fan of Riddler to see that research and level go in, and I was very satisfied with the results. I do miss my, question mark laden suit and everything, but I think that if that's going to happen, that'll be James Gunn's DC universe, know. But I thought it was great.
Yeah, no, 100%. But guys, did you see the trailer for One Battle After Another? And if you did, let us know what your thoughts are on it. And that leads us directly into our main topic. Made him wait 45 minutes, but it's worth it, I promise. Our main topic today covers the discussion of our big movie studios, secretly, or not so secretly, trying to kill the indie film, or specifically the auteur-driven movies that were started out as indies and are starting to get studio jobs. You can't fit all of that into a title of a video, hence it is what it is. So here we go. This all stemmed actually from One Battle After Another, which is why I mentioned it ties into things. This is a tweet from Variety, but it's a snippet of one of their articles, where they mention One Battle After Another, and they say, I'm going to read it verbatim, but it's important, but it's long, so forgive me. Paul Thomas Anderson and Leonardo DiCaprio's $130 million plus One Battle After Another will need to make at least $260 million to break even. A top source even says the film was tested in at least 3 markets in recent months, and a consistent note came up. Audiences struggled to root for any of the characters. DiCaprio has been praised for a quirky performance according to testing. A character played by Benicio del Toro scored highest of all, with one played by Sean Penn, also indexing high. Anderson reportedly agreed to audience testing for One Battle, given its high budget for the first time he's done since Boogie Nights. One source said Anderson voluntarily trimmed between 8 to 10 minutes from One Battle after early screening feedback. Now that seems like basic standard Hollywood stuff. You have a movie, you test the movie, you take the notes, you make changes if necessary. Whatever. However, you'll notice that whole thing began by sort of pitching at the top of it that, like, can you believe this movie needs $260 million to break even? And when you read the whole article, that vibe, that stink, if you will, is still there. And it's something that you start to see in a lot of different stuff in the trades, talking about particularly auteur-driven movies, with the exception of like Nolan and Villeneuve and auteurs who actually make a lot of money recently. But like if you look at Scorsese even, they're kind of turning their back on him and his high budgets. Ridley Scott sometimes.
Chazelle.
Damien Chazelle, yes, they went in talking about Damien Chazelle, especially with Babylon after it flopped and his new Netflix movie coming out, Evel Knievel. Well, Boots Riley, who is a very prominent filmmaker, tweeted this article and had this to say. I just texted with Paul Thomas Anderson yesterday, and he told me the movie isn't even done yet. So I questioned the sources in this article and also questioned the impetus for the existence of such articles as this. Who's pitching them and why? And this tweet, or X post, whatever the fuck you want to call it, started a whole thing, this whole conversation of, is there an agenda? A word that I hate using, but is there an agenda from big studios to kind of put out in the public to change the perception of these films and say, look at how much money they're costing us studios, your friend, the studios. Look at how much money these auteur filmmakers are costing us. Can you believe that they are doing this and being very shitty about notes and yada, 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 yada? I find that interesting. I find it very interesting that this is happening. This is very tinfoil hat. We're not saying, of course, that this is 100% happening, but I thought it would spark a good conversation. Do you think, because right now we're seeing a lot of different shifts in the industry. It's always been tough to work in. Talk to anybody who's out in LA right now, anyone who's working on smaller sets, bigger sets. It fucking sucks right now. No one is having a good time. And it's because things are so different. Like, you've heard stories recently in the trades of actors and people saying, like, something they tell me is we can't greenlight the film unless you have a certain amount of followers on social media. Like, even Maya Hawke was saying that. And it's just like, it's such a different world now. So, with that being said, are we now seeing that there's this agenda, like I said, to turn the public against auteur filmmakers so that studios can just keep funding their IPs and putting out movies that rake in money and keep that cycle going? Now, I think it's 25% true. And what I mean by that is, what a lot of people contributing to this conversation kind of aren't putting together is that a lot of these auteur filmmakers who maybe start an indie film do eventually go make studio movies. Like, that's kind of the trajectory, right? Minecraft is directed by the director of Napoleon Dynamite. Nolan, who started making Following and Memento, eventually made a fucking Batman trilogy. And now Universal movies. It's always been that way. And Paul Thomas Anderson, who started very small, is now making studio movies because he made a name for himself, much like Gambit. And it's something that you see often, this trajectory. But now, since the industry is changing, is that trajectory trying to be killed? I'm not so sure. However, I do think that studios are trying to change public perception on the projects that they're funding. Because everyone knows Hollywood has a big spending problem. Should this movie have cost $130 million? Admittedly, probably not. But that's not Paul Thomas Anderson's fault. You gave him the fucking money. Warner Brothers gave the money. If you don't think it should be funded that, then don't fucking fund it. It's that simple.
I'm sure if you countered with like 75 or something, he'd be like, I want to make this movie. Yeah, I'll cut this scene.
Or he says no, goes around to every other studio when they all say no, and then comes back. Like you gotta put your foot down. If it costs too much, don't pay the money and then put out an article saying like, isn't it shitty? It costs this much money. You gave the money. You did it. You did this. And it's just something that I find so fascinating. And again, I don't necessarily think it's purposeful to hurt filmmakers, but I do think they're trying to change public perception of themselves, because there's something really important I want to point out here, Nicholas, and this is kind of my key point here. You haven't seen our Minecraft review on the channel yet. It's coming. Spoiler alert, I thought it was fucking horrible. And part of that is, it literally, for those of you who are watching the show The Studio, by the way, it's amazing. It literally feels like a movie that the people in that show would produce. That's what it feels like. And it's going to make a lot of money, right? Because they tapped into a market that hasn't been catered to. Here's the thing, though. Eventually, that luck will run out. My prime example, the Transformers franchise. That franchise, movie after movie after movie after movie, just got worse and worse and worse and worse. But they kept making money, like crazy money, until about the fifth one. And then the audience collectively decided, you know what? Fuck you guys. I'm done. I'm done falling for these trailers. I'm done from you convincing me that these are going to be good. We're out. They broke that social contract with the studio, who said, keep coming, keep coming, keep coming. This one's good, this one's good. And they were like, fuck you, I'm not coming. And then guess what happened? They made 3 really good Transformers movies. Bumblebee, Rise of the Beast, and Transformers 1. Guess what happened to all 3? Barely made any fucking money. The worst grossing movies in the franchise, because the studio kept putting out shit movies because they wanted the IP to get that money, and the audience was fed up. The audience was done. Yes, Minecraft is going to make a ton of fucking money. Yes, they're going to make a Minecraft sequel. But if you make that movie 3 or 4 times, eventually the audience is going to go, fuck you, I'm out. I'm done. And then when you try to make another one and actually bring in a good filmmaker and actually try to make something make the IP worth a worthy project, they're out. It's over. They're not going to come back. Rant over. Nicholas, what do you think about this whole situation? I want to hear your thoughts on it.
I'm just trying to get my Dungeons and Dragons sequel, man. That was good from the start.
I know, and it didn't make enough, which sucks. It sucks.
No, I know. No, I mean, I think there's a lot to cover here. So I'm just gonna sort of ramble on a little bit until I get tired.
Go on.
Well, I think it's one of those things, right, where I think that the time we're living in is different, right? Like you said, with the TikTok, all this stuff has to be sort of front. Maya Hawke talking about her follower count and everything like that. We've gone to several screenings where we have 1 or 2 rows dedicated for the critics and for the press, and then there's a whole we're yelled at to turn our phones off, and then there's 3 or 4 rows of influencers who are recording the whole movie so they can make content to promote the movie. And a lot of the times those are the movies that I would say typically critically are not good, but it doesn't matter because the influencers get them out there. So I think that's probably just more of a general issue as well with that, is that influencer content driven marketing for movies, and I think you're catering to the reason they're putting them together in the way that they are, right? Minecraft is a big IP that they know will probably get families and people in. It's a 4-quadrant movie, which is really what they need now to try to get all of these people into the theaters to be making money, because partially the theater industry is dying, and the studios have not been doing enough to try to bolster that and putting it on the theaters. And they're being like, you guys are making shit movies that no one wants to see, and now we're losing money. So I think that's part of it as well. And I think they've just sort of lost track of that pipeline. they expect everyone to come out the gate and be able to handle and helm a big blockbuster like this. Jared Hess, the director of Minecraft's been working for years. He did Napoleon Dynamite, he did Nacho Libre. He's been around for years watching it. And if you look at something like the Spider-Man trilogy, John Watts did Cop Car, which had like no money, no budget, and then he was given the reins to Spider-Man. And if you watch it as those movies go on, one, two, and three, he develops as a director throughout them. And I think that they're losing track of that pipeline of it's all industry relationships, right? It's putting the directors first, putting them in your stable, right? Directors used to work just for one studio. That's why Nolan had such a great relationship with Warner Brothers is they gave him his first break, so now they're going to stick around a little bit. And I think that they're losing sight of sort of that. They're not fostering or nourishing talent in that regard. They're just worried about who can get this out the quickest, and we don't have to monitor and watch. There's some thought in there, I think.
No. I think
Yeah.
I think you.
I was sort of a directionalist. I didn't have a succinct point that I wanted to make about it. I think it's just more of my observational observations.
Buddy, that's the show. That's the whole show. Don't even worry about that. Oh, it's Friday. I forgot you got the wine. Of course.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I wasn't swearing there, was I?
No, you're good. I gotta hold back on my White Monster Fridays because my cholesterol's high. But you know how it goes.
This is my first class. We're not there yet.
We'll be back. We'll be back eventually. But
the 10
but
o'clock show, I'm gonna have some strong opinions.
Yes, but yeah, essentially, I agree with you. It's I just want people to be more like the risk that Warner Brothers took with Barbie, for example. If that would have been a fully studioized movie, it would have felt very similar to Minecraft in that way. And it wasn't. That was a clear vision from Greta Gerwig. Yes, with some studio stuff in there. Like there's a whole, was it Mercedes? What's the car that they drive that's clearly like, oh, this was a big product placement section of that movie. But like
BMW or something?
Yeah, it was something like that. But like, it's one of those things of like, that's the difference, right? That's the difference. Both made money. But if you made Barbie 2 and 3, which I don't know if they are, but if you made Barbie 2 and 3 and 4 and you kept it that good, they'll keep making money. You keep making movies like Transformers 1 through 5. By 5, the audience is like, I'm done with you. And then you've damaged that IP that you've so been holding on to, convincing yourself that it's worth it. It's not worth it. For people who are so fucking protective of IPs and won't greenlight anything else unless it's related to some fucking IP, protect the goddamn IP. Stop just throwing it out there, making it shit. You're the reason. The people who do that are the reason why people refer to movies as content now. And it fucking pisses me off. I hate it. Sorry, I'm getting
I
spicy.
think part of that too is I think that hopefully maybe to some extent studios are starting to realize that, and Fantastic Beasts sizzled out. And now they're like, all right, well, let's take our time. Let's try to reboot it as a series. I am curious to see how the live action How to Train Your Dragon is.
Mm-hmm.
I know it just had its like soft premiere at CinemaCon and everyone was raving about it, but I think there's a lot of hype just going around being shown a movie early. I think I tend to lean a little more positive just for the excitement of a press screening every now and again. So I am curious in that regard, right? Like, why do we need the live action How to Train Your Dragon? Like, let's see it. Let's see what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just talking about on the show, I think on the Monday show, right? They have the live action Legend of Zelda movie. Mm-hmm. Curious about that, because who would have thought the Mario movie would have made $1 billion animated? So I'm curious why not do a Zelda movie in that regard as well. Just Nintendo should be animated, I think. So we'll see. I think it's just the picking and choosing of what IPs to protect and which ones to continuously exploit is what's interesting to me.
I agree. I agree with you. And
but also, sorry, one last point. It's on the audiences. Everyone was complaining that Marvel was getting stale. That they weren't trying to do anything different. Guess what they did? They made the Eternals. Whether you like it or not, it was a very significantly different vibe than every Marvel movie. And guess what? Everyone hated it. No one saw it. It made no money. And then they went back to making every other Marvel movie. And then now people are like, well, you got to make new, different Marvel movies. And it's like, we tried.
And I'll do one better. I'll do one better. First of all, let's point out, everyone who watches the show knows, fucking love Eternals, just throwing it out there. But you also had a complaint from people saying that these movies have no identity and that there's no, you can't tell who directs these movies because they're all made by the same committee. So what did they do? They got Sam fucking Raimi to come in and make a Sam Raimi Doctor Strange movie. And when you watch it, it's a fucking Sam Raimi Doctor Strange movie. And then what happened? What you just said. Except that made money.
It did, but I think it's also one of those things, right? When they have these IPs, like, of course, Spider-Man's going to make $1 billion. It's Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with your Eternals, your Doctor Stranges, these movies that are really not consequential, let's say, to the greater storyline. I know that Doctor Strange tends to play a larger role. Spider-Man's a linchpin property, right? But something like an Eternals, part of what made Guardians of the Galaxy great was that unique perspective on it. I think that Taika Waititi coming on to Thor Ragnarok, while wasn't necessarily taking a swing on Thor, which was, I think Thor just needed a shotgun blast, and that's what Taika Waititi had provided with that first one, and then the second one is a different story entirely there, but with these little, I don't want to say lesser known IPs, but when you have these movies that are getting greenlit, all these TV shows have been more or less all of them the same. The ones that have been different have been the good ones, such as Daredevil Born Again and Loki and even Agatha All Along, which had, these are ones that had a very clear vision, which were trying to serve, I think, a more targeted audience instead of that 4-quadrant sector. And I think that's where they go. Like, it is still asinine to me that there's not a Blade movie. He has a sword and fights vampires. Literally just give it to any action director and let them go nuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
100%.
you don't have to say the vampire's blood is blue like in fucking Morbius for some reason. And give me that if you want to go crazy with it. Like, it's just insane that there's so many different Marvel IPs that they can just work with and have that creative difference and those different unique identities. But I'm off topic now. I think studios need to just respect indie filmmakers and give them that chance. And I think it's also the spending problems. Like you said, they're just not reining them in as much as they should.
No, yeah, 100%. 100%. I agree. But guys, before we go on the show, I promise I put the comments up on the screen for everyone, and my better half wanted to remind you, Nicholas, hey, Wicked was great. So there you go.
Okay. Well, I enjoyed Wicked. I saw it 3 times against my will, but No, you know what it was? It was the first one was our early screening, and then we saw it with the group, and then my better half didn't get to go with the group, so I said that we would go on a date night and watch it again. So I saw it 3 times, and if you look on my Letterboxd, it won me over eventually. It was 3 stars, 3 stars, 3.5.
Boom.
I got wore down, but the comments referring to our conversation earlier were we were talking about there was an Oscars that was There Will Be Blood versus No Country Old Men. Wicked is still not even in the same stratosphere as either of those movies.
And listen, you also had years of like Shape of Water versus 3 Billboards. You had Parasite, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, all going up against each other. Like, it was nuts. 2019, what a year. By the way, we could do a whole episode on this if it's a slow news week. I think 2026 is going to be the next 2019. I think 2026 is going to be a bitchin' year for movies. Just throwing it out there.
We got some sneakers coming in here. I mean, we got a new Wes Anderson coming out this year. We got PTA. We got a lot of good directors doing stuff this year.
2026, I think we have Nolan, Villeneuve, Spielberg,
Inarritu, right?
Inarritu, Avengers, Spider-Man. There's another, there's more IP ones and there's more independent ones. I think... No, Bring Her Back comes back this summer. Oh, I can't wait for that. But yeah, we're getting off topic now. But guys, that's the show. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you're watching us live, please consider subscribing. We're almost to 5,000 subscribers. We'd love to get there. If you're listening to us on audio, thank you for listening there. But please consider coming over to subscribe to YouTube and watch us live. If you watch us live, we'll always put your comments on the screen if we deem them appropriate and, chat and communicate with you guys. We love making this a community, like I said at the top. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.